And again, I don't like to comment about the works of other people. I can only tell you about myself and what I know.
Okay. Well, that's, he was considered to be one of the super psychics at the early stages of supposedly the military getting involved in all of that, as you know. So in terms of the future, do you see an ultimate positive future for the planet or what?
Yeah, ultimately I do. I really don't think that these tyrants, if you will have full reign forever. Ultimately, I think when human beings are really, really pushed to the wall, they will fight back. They will take back their own power and their own control. And ultimately, no matter who it is, whether it's the Illuminati, the Draco, or the Fourth Reich, or the Kuiper's Belt, or whomever, ultimately they will not have any power here. And that's why I encourage people to go within and to take back their own minds and reunify the fragmentation of their personality so that they can get their whole self back again.
Okay. And what about the idea of group meditations for the betterment of the planet? Do you believe in that?
Okay, here's my problem with that. Most of the time I see this posted on the internet, on such and such a date at such and such a time, all get together mentally and focus on this thing. That's an Illuminati agenda. Here they can, by the internet, get hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people all in the same time and space to focus on this one thing, and then they can shoot mind control into that and control all those people simultaneously. I don't believe in that kind of thing. I think it can be very dangerous. If you want to do mental work, do it on your own. If you have a couple of friends or people that you interact with in your private group, do it on your own. Don't announce it to the world, because then you'll become a target for mind control to be shot at you, if you will. When they have a collective of minds focusing on one thing, that's like letting the burglar in the house and turning the alarm off. That's very dangerous. You need to really do your mental work on your own or in private groups without announcing it publicly.
Okay, and I think that's very good advice for people listening, because I think there's a lot of confusion about that. Are you speaking out at various conferences and so on?
Yeah, sure. In fact, we just had one here, our own conference on health and healing, which was fantastic last weekend. We have another one coming up in August, and again in September, our annual conference. And I go all over the world.
When you say here, do you want to tell people where this is and maybe where they could go to get involved?
Sure. Of course. We are in St. Joseph, Michigan, which is on the west coast of Michigan on the lake right across from Chicago. On the website, expansions.com, there is a schedule of all our activities and what we're doing and where we're doing everything, and you're welcome to come and join us. We'd love to have you at our seminars and conferences. I do personal consultations. I travel everywhere in the world. We just came back from Antarctica, where we did some research onto the bases there and what's going on there. A lot of fantastic information on our website.
Okay, as far as Antarctica, you're saying you just went there. Well, there is a base there. How were you able to kind of get there, and under what circumstances, and then what did you find?
Well, we went by ship, which I really don't recommend. It's very, very rough Drake Passage. We went to several bases, British, Argentinian, Chilean, Ukrainian. The interesting thing about the bases is there's a plaque on the bases that say that they were established to monitor the enemy. However, they don't tell you what the enemy is. And when you question them, they're extremely evasive. And when they give you a tour of the base, it's almost like a joke, because they'll show you the bathroom, the bedroom, everything but where the equipment is. Like here's a closet. I'm like, okay, what is that thing out there? Oh, that's a scientific experiment. We can't talk about it. But basically, under the Norwegian section, that is where the German base underneath is located, what the Germans had called the Schwabenland, which was built between 1938 and 1944 by the Third Reich, And that's documented, as they said, they were creating a, quote, paradise for the Führer, unquote. And they used materials from South Africa, South America. And 1944 and 45, there were trainloads of Aryan-looking people in Germany, but they also came from Ukraine and Poland and other areas, that boarded these trains, went to Bremerhaven, boarded ships and submarines, and were never seen again, and they went off to Antarctica. In 1946, the U.S., British, and Canada sent Navy and Air Force to Antarctica for war. Now, this is 1 year after World War II ended. They never explained why they were going to Antarctica, why they were there for 8 or 9 months, and then returned apparently unsuccessful. Now, you may recall in the last few years that a lot of the bases in Antarctica have been closed up because the scientists have been getting cancer, radiation poisoning. Lake Vostok in the Russian territory rose 65 degrees under the ice, and electromagnetic anomalies came to the surface that were considered a threat to national security, but then no more information was given. So there's a lot going on underneath Antarctica than we're being told, and that's what we went to find out.
Okay. Do you believe that they are amassing groups of I don't know, soldiers or whatever, or plans? Are they using that as some kind of evacuation point or for the planet? Any ideas?
You mean in Antarctica?
Yes.
Well, no. Antarctica is basically underground. Is the Fourth Reich is there, and my feeling is that they are connecting to the Kuiper's Belt beings as an alliance against the Illuminati, Draco, and everyone else. So, unfortunately, my feeling is this planet is becoming a vast battleground for many different factions, all having the same agenda, but yet wanting their own side to be the dominant one.
Okay, and are you visited by various ET beings that materialize even in your presence?
Not anymore. That was years ago. I keep myself in protection techniques, and I just keep those things away.
Okay. But when you tap into things, I mean, in other words, I assume there are times when through meditation you're tapping into certain things. But on the other hand, are you ever receiving messages per se, or whatever, you might call them, intuitions or whatever about coming events, etc.?
Yes, of course I do, but I question them, because I always test to see if that's from programming or if it's legitimate. I always test it, and by flushing the information with a violet, it keeps it in protection. By using the brown merger symbol at the pineal gland, that will preclude any programming information from coming through. Using oversoul symbol of silver infinity over the crown chakra will basically keep you connected to the God mind within and the oversoul. So I use protocols to focus on real information instead of what might be programming or misinformation that might be coming through.
I understand. And as far as the United States in the next year or two, are you seeing, as I mentioned, the downturn in the economy, any kind of civil war, that sort of thing?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have been saying on my website that the second half of this year is going to be very volatile in the United States. I think there's going to be terrorist attacks within the country by American terrorists, if you will, the so-called militia and those kind of groups that will be attacking the government. But again, even these militia groups are setups because the government uses it to say, you see, we need to have martial law. We need to then impose more sanctions and controls in the United States so that these groups cannot function. And then it moves into other things. So I would tell people to be very cautious this especially when you're in crowded areas like big cities, shopping malls, tourist attractions, even Disney World, this kind of thing. Be very careful and cautious about who and what's around you. Plan an escape route wherever you are so you can exit quickly. Do feel something very bad will happen in this country and in Europe within the second half of this year.
Okay, well, we're nearly in the second half of this year. I assume you're starting, you're talking about May or June.
Well, I think summertime onward.
Okay. Let me see. You had talked I think somewhere, I have a friend who wants me to ask this question. You mentioned going to Peru. Do you consider that there are certain places that are safer than others, and is Peru some place where you consider to be, for some reason, safe?
I was just there in January, and it was rather safe. They do still have some elements of terrorists up in the mountains, but most people don't go to those locations. Machu Picchu, for example, recently has the roads leading up to it have been flooded, so that's not a good place to go right now. But the big cities are perfectly fine. The only big danger, I would say, was seismic activity, which could happen really at any time. But if you keep yourself in protection, you'll be okay.
Okay. And do you see, for example, volcanic eruptions in the United States, supervolcano like Yellowstone, other places erupting like Iceland recently?
Yes, and I've, again, written about this constantly on my site. I'm actually very concerned about the Pacific Northwest, Mount Rainier, Mount Baker, Mount Hood. That chain of volcanoes is filling with magma and starting to quake a bit. Even Lake Mammoth in California, steam vents have been opening over the last couple of years and fracturing. I think California is very volatile right now. The volcanoes in Hawaii are also very dangerous. But I think one of the largest ones we have to be concerned about are the volcanic chains in eastern Siberia and in Indonesia, which are so huge that if they were to erupt, even if 2 or 3 were to erupt simultaneously, they would put enough ash and dust in the atmosphere to create very cold summers and extremely brutal winters for many years to come. And I think that we are in just about the edge or verge of that about to happen. And therefore, I tell people to keep storing, clean food, water that can last a bit of time. If you have a greenhouse and grow things indoors, I think that's wise too.
Okay, and are you aware of space fleets taking possibly terraforming other planets as an option?
From this planet or from other worlds?
Going elsewhere. In other words, evacuating.
Yeah, I think, the Illuminati already have plans like that for the moons of Saturn and Jupiter. They've talked about it even. They're even looking for Earth-like worlds in other solar systems. So, yes, they are absolutely planning things like that. But not for evacuation. I don't want to use that word. I'll say colonization.
Okay, okay. All right, well, we're actually winding down. Again, this is Project Camelot, projectcamelotportal.com or projectcamelot.org. Carrie Cassidy from Whistleblower Radio. And Stuart Swerdlow, thank you so much for being with me for the last 2 hours. I know we've sort of battered you with questions right and left, but people out there have tons of curiosity, and at least the people that we're dealing with, and it's valuable to get someone who was involved in Montauk and also, has some of the abilities you have to share with the public in this way. So I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that you invited me on, and it was a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you. And again, could you give your website, and then we'll just sign off here.
Yes, my website is www.expansions.com. News updates, Q&A every single day. Please sign on and look in and learn whatever you want to learn.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stuart. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.